I'm David Milliken, and I've been a member for, my wife and I've been a member for over 20 years at Dogwood, and we have 3 boys. And Preston is my middle son.
As a 16-year-old, I never thought about death until April 25th, 2015. We were involved in what's known as the worst sailing disaster in modern American history.
So the Dauphin Island Regatta is raced down in Mobile, and it's three sailing clubs there on the Mobile Bay all come together once a year for the big regatta. And so in this event, it's usually about 100 to 120 sailboats that race from the top of Mobile Bay to a barrier island at the Gulf of Mexico, which is Dauphin Island. So that's about 18 nautical miles that you sail to go from start to finish.
So we woke up really early in the morning, and we got our sailboat set up, waiting for our race time to start about 9:30 in the morning. And so we set sail about 7 a.m. and we were just waiting for our start.
Obviously, there's a lot of people. There's over 100 sailboats, over 400 sailors out in this race. And everybody watches the weather because you're trying to determine like what's the strategy that you're gonna do on the race. And so in the beginning of this race, it was a pretty clear day, about 20-mile-an-hour winds, so perfect sailing weather.
So we were about 2 hours into the race, and I remember just looking up and seeing the skies were dark. Like, I thought it was like midnight outside. And lightning was striking all around us. And we're pretty much the only boat in eyesight that I could see, at least. And I just remember seeing lightning strike everywhere and thinking, we're in the middle of the ocean with a 20-foot mast in the middle of the ocean. Like, this lightning hits the mast, like, we could be toast. But so I just remember just seeing that big cloud and turning around and looking and seeing clear skies. So I knew we could be safe, but I didn't know at the time that the storm was rushing at us at about 60 knots. We turned back around, headed towards land, and headed right in the middle of the storm. And I remember turning around and looking at my dad. I was in the front of the boat, he was in the back, and him saying, "We're gonna be okay, like God's with us." In an instant, we capsized. I went flying, like the boat launched me, and I was up underneath the boat, not knowing where my dad is, trying to find the surface, but more importantly, trying to find my dad, because I knew he was gonna be the one to keep me safe. I just felt a sense of peace of a hand touching my shoulder, and it was my dad. And we poked up from under the boat, and we got back up on the boat. The winds were rushing about 75 miles an hour, and the waves were about 15 feet high. And we kind of just sat there and rode it out on our boat that was flipped upside down. I just remember yelling out to my dad, like, we need to pray. And I just remember praying to God, like, God, just calm the storms and keep us safe. And after we prayed, I just started singing songs, just worshiping God, because I knew He was the only one that could get us through that storm and keep us safe.
We were out there riding out the storm for approximately an hour. But unfortunately, there was 10 boats sunk during this regatta. There were over 40 sailors who were rescued floating out in the ocean. And the really most unfortunate thing is that 6 people lost their life during this race. I think I learned 3 things during this from Preston. One is where we learned we need to cling to God. We need to get as close to Him as we can, and that's what Preston and I did in that moment. I think that Preston was the one who said, Dad, we gotta pray. And Preston was the one that said, Dad, we've gotta sing worship songs, and we started singing worship songs. But I would say where it hit me is on the ride home. My brother, my niece, and Preston were in the car, and we were going back, but there had been 6 people who lost their lives and over 40 sailors that had been rescued, but it would have been a lot different ride home, and that God had actually performed a miracle. And that I hope this story will be encouraging to people who need a miracle.